Okay, welcome. Today we're going to be talking about meal planning. Before we get started, we're going to do a quick poll for those of you who are able to participate in the poll. If you're not driving, some of you are driving in the car. I will read the questions out loud and the answers that everyone chose. But these are things, there's a few items that we're going to be learning during the presentation today. So I wanted to see what your previous knowledge is on some of these topics. So you're going to see a poll come up. The first question has been posted. Go ahead and pick what you think is the best answer. And then we will learn what the answers are during the presentation. Okay, another 5 seconds. All right, so the majority of people say bottom drawer, where the berries should be. Okay, let's go ahead and end that poll. And here's your next one. It is best to store broccoli near apples to make it last longer. True or false? Make the broccoli last longer. If you're just joining us, hopefully you see the poll on the screen. You may participate answering the question. We have one more poll question after this to test our knowledge going into the presentation. Okay, let's end that poll. And last one. Within how many days should you eat leftovers after cooking them? This question may be up to your personal preference, so there might be some variation here. Okay, so let's go ahead and end that poll. And let's get started with our conversation on meal planning. How many of you by raising your hand, the little hand raise on the bottom, how many of you currently meal plan? Maybe not every week, but do it on a regular basis. All right, good. About half of you on a regular basis. Perfect. All right, so hopefully you can learn some new tips today. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box and Charlotte will assist us. Did everybody see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get started talking about meal planning. What are the benefits of meal planning? Some people might think that meal planning takes a lot of time. They might think that it's kind of a pain to do it, kind of like logging your food. Okay, but there are a lot of benefits to meal planning. If you have health goals, if you're trying to lose weight or trying to watch your cholesterol or your blood pressure and your sodium intake, your fat intake, whatever it may be, it's much easier to reach those health goals when you are meal planning because it helps you to avoid the last minute indecisiveness of what you're going to eat, driving through, a drive through, getting things that you wouldn't normally do, eat. So, meal planning can help you with your health goals. It can help you save money, right? We'll often get the question of, or not the question, but like more of a statement of, McDonald's is the food is so cheap. But really, when you think about it, yes, there's like a dollar menu. But when you think about, rice and beans and container of beans, let's just say, for instance, a container of beans and a bag of rice, how many meals can you get out of that? So we're not necessarily saving money if we go through the drive-through. So sometimes, but not always. There's ways to do it. Definitely do it and save money. But if we're meal planning, then we are avoiding, again, the last minute, run to the store and get something, or go out for dinner, or um, the other side of it is if we are, you know, throwing away leftovers, or if we have all this food and we didn't plan for it, then we could be also wasting money. We can save time. So meal planning does take time, but it saves us time when we are most stressed for time, like during the week. So that's a benefit. It can help you to increase the variety of food. Sometimes when we are not meal planning, we're left the last minute to pick things, and maybe it's not a good variety of food or healthy food. So it can definitely help when we plan out, making sure that we have our various colors of fruits and vegetables and everything on our plate, the variety of food groups, then we are definitely getting a more nutritious meal. It helps us get control over what we're eating. So again, same concept. If I'm planning ahead and I'm thinking carefully what I'm going to buy at the grocery store, what I'm going to eat this week, then I can control it versus last minute. Okay, what are we going to eat tonight? We don't have as much control over that. Decreasing food waste, so making how much food you're going to need for the week, portioning it out, and knowing that there is an expiration of how long we want to save leftovers for, then we can avoid that by planning ahead. And prevents the stressful question, what do I make for dinner tonight? Has anybody ever said that to their family or in their head to themselves? Right? I know I have. So we want to avoid that because that can be stressful, especially when we get home after a long day of work and we're tired. We want to avoid asking that question. So there are 3 steps to success, and this is kind of just a few tips to help you get started or help you improve on your meal planning. The first step that we're going to talk about is to make the plan and make a menu. Second step is to stock your pantry, refrigerator, and freezer with the 5 food groups, so making sure you get that variety of food. And number 3 is to keep a running grocery list. So let's talk about those right now. The first is to make the plan. Do you have a plan? I actually used to have a neighbor that we would be outside, let's say on a Sunday with the kids outside playing, and she would say to her husband, okay, what do we want to have each night of the week? And I thought this was the strangest conversation until I realized the benefit of it. So he would say, okay, let's have, tacos one night, let's have pasta one night, or whatever he would say, whatever they agreed upon. And then she would go to the grocery store based on those meals. And I thought that was pretty good planning, right? So they knew every single night what they were going to have. So she may not necessarily have prepared her meals on Sunday, but she knew what the menu was going to be. So she can buy those specific items. And then there's no question what's for dinner tonight when it came time for the after work rush of getting dinner on the table. So, what is your plan? Are you going to do it that way? Or are you going to make meals in advance? If you do want to prep ahead of time, what day will you do that on? Okay, maybe Sunday is the best day. Sunday afternoon, you got the football game on, or whatever it is that you're doing, turn on some nice music and make your meals. And that way you have it ready before the rush of the Monday. Maybe you base your what you're going to buy on the sales for the week. I know I do this sometimes. If I go to the grocery store, I may not necessarily know what we're going to have for dinner that night or for the week, but I might see, this particular item on sale for dinner. And so I'll get that, or this is BOGO, or whatever it may be. That helps me to not overspend and also to help me plan because I base it on what can I get on sale. Okay, so that might work for you. That's one an option to do. What will the week look like? So knowing it's Sunday, I look at my work schedule, I look at the week. Maybe I have, after school meetings, maybe I have kids' activities. What is going to happen for this week? And how can I plan for that week? That's important to think about as well. If it's going to be busy or if you're going to have time, maybe you don't need to prep so much because you do have the weeknights free this week. Something to think about. And do you have recipes or do you need recipes? So, where does everybody get their recipes from? Do you get it from your, family traditions that have been passed down? Do you go onto Pinterest? Do you Google them? Do you come up with them? Type in the chat box and Charlotte can share with me what you do for your recipes.
All right, we have family recipes. Family recipes. A combination of family recipes, YouTube, and friends. Anyone else? Websites, magazines, family, web searches, Pinterest, cooking magazines, my own recipes, mostly family handed down, someone said.
All right, perfect. So,
Yeah.
usually, there's certain dishes that are just, easy for you because you've been making them for so many years, or your family, your parents made them for you. Or maybe you want to search for something new this week. So that's important to look at. Do I have the recipes? Do I need to get them? And will that be part of my prep day is to look up these recipes so I know what ingredients I need to buy. The next step is stocking up. So we have to make sure that our kitchen is full of what we're going to need, but not too much to where it could go bad if we're not going to use it. So if we are meal prepping ahead of time, then we'll know which ingredients we don't have and what we're going to need. Right. So think about what's going to be in your freezer. You could stock up in your freezer. If you're making meals on Sunday, for instance, and you want to freeze them so that you have them not just for this week, but maybe moving forward into next week or a few weeks down the road, some things can stay that long. So if I'm going to make something, then I'm going to make a large portion of it, like a soup or any other kind of rice dish or something like that that I could freeze. Then I'll have the portioned out items for when I need it, when I'm in a rush, and I can just defrost it, microwave it, put it in the oven, whatever it may be, and have it easily for that night. Same with the refrigerator. Of course, things in the refrigerator can go bad quicker, but I want to make sure it's stocked with all the things that I'm going to need for the week. And then your pantry or counter. So things in the pantry can help you on those nights that are crazy, and we're going to talk about those in a little bit. Like the can of rice, or sorry, can of beans, or rice, or pasta, or oatmeal, or whatever it is that you think would be good to just have there, in case you need it, in case you're feeling like it's a night where you have not planned, and you need something quick. This is a helpful chart here, and you're going to have access to this to save this presentation to know where to put your food to maximize efficiency, maximize power, keep food fresher longer. And one of the questions, does anybody remember what the question was that related to where to place things in the refrigerator on the little poll that we had?
The berries.
The berries.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, I think, chose the bottom drawers, which is what we would normally think. But here it's saying the berry should be in a lower shelf, and maybe it should
Mm,
be like in a container or a bowl, so it's fresh. You can see the blueberries right here. That's what it was recommending. All right.
okay.
Not to say if you kept it in the bottom drawer, maybe it would be just as good, but this is helpful to kind of know where to place things, that there is a rhyme and a reason for where things go in the refrigerator that could help you maximize not only energy, but also how long your food is going to last. So I thought this was a helpful tool for you to see. And then storing produce. There's a lot to think about when it comes to storing produce. We may not always store things in the best place, and there's a lot of things to think about when you bring home produce. Okay? You want to think about what you're going to store it in. Is it going to be in the refrigerator or on the shelf in a fruit basket? Is it going to be in a plastic bag or in a paper bag? Okay? Where is it going to be? That's important to think about first. Then you're going to think about shelf life, how long it's going to last. You want to know that so that you don't buy too much or too little. And that way it can help you to not waste food. You want to think about the temperature. So again, it's if it's going to be in the refrigerator, on the counter, in room temperature air, and then you want to think about ethylene gases. Does anybody know what ethylene gases are? And this is part of our poll question.
No one has an answer.
Okay. Ethylene gases are very important, and they are the
Oh,
reason why we often say, my whatever produce went bad so quickly. I don't know why. So I stopped buying it. And now I don't get to have that fruit or vegetable, whatever it is, because I'm afraid I feel like it goes bad so quickly. Okay. Ethylene gases are the reason for that. Some produce emit an ethylene gas and at different amounts at different stages of its life that can speed up the ripening of a produce item that does not produce those ethylene gases. And that is the reason why we should store certain things near each other and not other things. So the question about broccoli, okay, broccoli does not produce the ethylene gas. Apples do. So you want to avoid putting them next to each other. Okay, unless you want to speed up the ripening of a product. So maybe you bought, let's say it's an avocado or a banana, something that is very hard, or even like a peach, and you want to. Um, it's really hard and overripe. I'm sorry, underripe, and you know you're going to need it for tomorrow night's recipe. Then you can put it with an ethylene producing produce item so it can speed up the ripening, right? So it can be helpful, but it can also be harmful if you're putting it next to it, to that ethylene product, and you don't want it to go bad so quickly. Okay, because then you won't be able to eat it on day 3 or 4. So that's something to think about. You don't necessarily have to memorize this chart, but there are certain ones that are stronger in ethylene gases than other. And I'm going to share this infographic with you. Okay, it tells you where you to store the produce, whether to refrigerate it or not to refrigerate it. Okay, and then the gas releasers and the gas sensitive. So these are the ones that have the ethylene gas, some more than others. Bananas tend to be pretty high in ethylene gas, and the ones that are sensitive to that you don't want to place with the gas releasers. Does that make sense? So that can be helpful to you so that you can preserve the life of your produce. So where you store it is very important. And you want to take a look at this. Maybe you want to print it out, and that way you can keep it at home to always remember how long to keep things, where to keep it, and what to put it next to and what not to put it next to. The next topic is food safety. So there's several numbers that you want to make sure that you're aware of. This is not necessarily, talking about meal prep, but in addition to making sure that the foods, can last the whole week and we've prepared ahead of time, it's also important to be safe when we're cooking and keeping food. So just a few things you want to remember. If we're coming up on the holiday season, we have those holiday parties, or maybe we have the barbecues or the tailgating for football games, whatever it may be, you want to make sure that the food is not sitting out for more than 2 hours, food that can spoil. Okay, that's a good number to remember is 2 hours. Your refrigerator should be set at 40 degrees. right? That's for maximum efficiency as well as to keep things the proper temperature. When you're reheating leftovers, let's say you're reheating some chicken from a meal that you made the night before, 165 degrees is what you're aiming for. If you have a little thermometer you can put into it. Store leftovers in small containers and eat within 3 to 4 days. So some of you said 1 to 2, and that's sometimes a preference. You don't feel comfortable eating it more than 2 days, and that's fine. But technically 3 to 4 days is okay for leftovers, which if you made it on Sunday, that would last you, through most of the week. So that can be very helpful if you take whatever you make and you divide it into 4 servings, and then you have one for each day. Most microwaves have a turntable in them, but sometimes when you're at work or if you have a small microwave, it may not have the turntable in it. So if that's the case, you want to make sure that you rotate the food halfway through cooking, so that way you can make sure that it cooks properly in all parts of whatever your dish is. Make sure you rinse and wash your produce and your meat before eating and cooking. Just be careful with the meat that you don't get the salmonella all over your sink and everything. Make sure you clean very well after you prepare meat. But today we're talking about produce. So do make sure that you rinse and wash your produce. Pay attention to expiration dates. These are more important than the use by or best if used by. Again, this is sometimes a preference thing. I'm very particular about the use by or the expiration dates. I think that Charlotte is too. But most important is the expiration dates. You don't want to go past that. You want to throw out any items that go past their expiration date. But when it comes to use by or best if used by, if it still looks okay and it smells okay, then you're safe to eat it. If it's not, you don't want to go too far past that, but that's just kind of something to keep in mind. And then know what to freeze and what not to freeze. So again, we talked about soups, freezing, making big pots of soup and portioning it out so that you have some for other days when you don't have as much time to cook. Just make sure you do not want to freeze eggs that are in the shell, lettuce, cottage cheese, and mayo. So keep in mind what ingredients you're using when it comes to that. This is something that you can print out for your workplace. You can click on it when I send you this presentation. It helps to remind people about different safety tips when it comes to food. And then keeping a running grocery list. So how many of you do a grocery list? You can do a show of hands, do the little hand raise. All right, it's important to do a grocery list. Why is that? Why do we do grocery lists?
To keep us on track.
To not overspend. Someone said to not overspend.
To not buy things you would not normally buy.
Yep.
Right. Absolutely. So it can help keep us on track, help keep us within our budget, right? And if we know, okay, the things on my list is all that I need, then it's going to help us to avoid those special kind of purchases that are not going to be as healthy, and again, therefore, increase our budget and get us away from the healthy foods that we need. So, in addition, when you're planning out your meals, if you know that you want to make certain dishes, you want to make sure that you have it on the list. Okay, it's better than keeping it up in your head because you want to get that on the paper and not have to worry about it and help you to not forget things. Okay, so make sure you keep a grocery list. How you do that list is up to you. Okay, where you're going to keep it. You can do paper and pencil if that's helpful to you. Keep it in your purse. Keep it on you in your wallet if that's helpful. You can have it on the refrigerator. We have like a dry erase board in my house. And so we'll, whenever we're going through and we run out of something, we'll write it on the list. And then before we go to the store, we'll just take a quick picture of the list. And therefore it's on our phone. Sometimes my husband and I will text each other, okay, here's what we need at the grocery store, whatever works for you. But figure out where it's going to be best to keep that list, whether it's on you or at the house in the kitchen, and how you want to do that so that way you can make sure you always have that list when you go to the grocery store. Think about how often you want to return to the store. Some people like going every day just to pick up a few things. Other people find that it takes more time to do that, and that way, and they're also overspending when they go to the grocery store more than once a week. So, what's going to work best for you, and plan ahead for that. Okay, and that's where the meal prep and the planning come, like on the weekend. It can be helpful to have that grocery list, buy everything you're going to need for the week, and that way you don't have to worry about it. And how much do you want to store at the house? So sometimes we tend to, if things are on sale or if we're going there anyway, we want to buy so much stuff. But thinking about things have expiration dates, how quickly are we going to eat this? How much space do I have in my kitchen? Maybe I have a small kitchen and I don't want to overload my kitchen, my refrigerator. Just things to think about when you're planning ahead. Okay, but who's ever had a crazy week where they couldn't plan? I know I have. So, what do we do those weeks when they're just so crazy? Maybe you're out of town for the weekend. And so that Sunday, when you normally would have planned and prepared your food, you don't get to do it because you didn't get in until very late. Right. And then we have a crazy week ahead. We have meetings, we've got, kids' activities or whatever it is. What do we do about those weeks? It is possible to prepare ahead of time and get healthy food in a flash. Right. The most important thing to remember is that you incorporate all food groups. So this is where it helps when you're stocking your kitchen to have all the food groups represented. All right, because what happens when we're in a rush and we don't plan ahead, we tend to eat things that we wouldn't normally eat. But if we make sure that we get all the food groups in, even when we're feeling rushed and last minute, then we know we're still getting the nutrition that we need. All right. So let's take a fast food. Maybe we have to stop at a fast food restaurant for lunch or for dinner because it's all we have time for. Okay. Or if we're out on the road, how can I still get my food groups in when I am eating at fast food? Okay. It's possible. Remembering that being last minute, having to drive through the fast food restaurant, because we all do that every once in a while, all right, doesn't necessarily give us an excuse to now going eat those unhealthy foods that are not going to help with our nutrition. So always keeping in mind, how can I balance this out and make sure that I'm eating healthy even when I'm in a rush? Because when I'm in a rush, my stress levels may be high, and eating the unhealthy food is not going to help me cope with these stress. Okay, and then it could lead to sickness. So we always want to keep nutrition in mind, allow ourselves to have treats, of course, but how can we get all the food groups in even when we're rushed? That's important to think about. Is it okay to have breakfast for lunch or dinner? Sure. I love having breakfast for dinner. And sometimes, if all you have in the house is eggs or toast or oatmeal, then that can become your dinner. That's perfectly okay. Try to think outside the box, not always thinking that I have to sit down, to this whole meal with my meat and my, cooked vegetables and my rice or whatever. Maybe that's just not possible. Something is better than nothing. So maybe I make those eggs that I have and put in some vegetables into the eggs and, pair it with a fruit salad or whatever it is. But thinking outside the box again, when we're in that crunch and we don't have time to plan. We can also think about prepared foods. Some stores have prepared foods, or prepared meals that can be quick to prepare, or they're already prepared for you. Just have to go home and heat them up. So that's definitely an option. Again, keeping in mind nutrition when we choose those prepared foods. Okay. The best thing to do is to plan for the craziness in advance. We know it's going to happen. We may not know when. Okay. A month from now, I don't know what my week is going to look like. But if I have those things in the freezer that I can defrost, that cup of soup or, that meal that I made a few weeks ago that I froze, or those rice and beans in the cabinet, if I know I have those staples that for when I'm in a rush, I can just heat them up, cook them real quick, and not have to worry about our nutrition for that night just because we have a crazy schedule. All right. So it's important to think about that and plan ahead for those crazy times. Most important to remember, again, not every week is going to be ideal. Not every weekend are we going to be able to prepare and plan for our meals. But what's important is that we take the time to enjoy our meals. If you have a family, if you have kids at home, sit down with them and eat. Even if it's a quick dinner, let's sit together and talk about our day. If you live alone, make sure you're at least sitting down. Okay, sit down and eat without any distractions so that you can pace yourself and make sure that you're enjoying the food and being mindful of what you're eating. That's real important. Make sure you're getting the variety of food groups. Again, we talked about this. Just because we're in a rush or we have to, eat something that we wouldn't normally eat, doesn't mean that we still can't get our a variety of our food groups in. And as you may recall from a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the fruits, the vegetables, the grains, the protein, and the dairy. That makes a complete meal. Okay. And then getting a variety of colors. That's what Color Weeks is all about, is that variety of colors. So really try when you're going to the grocery store, you're planning ahead, looking at the produce section, okay, how many different colors can I put into my cart so that this week I know I'm getting all the colors of the rainbow to get that nutrition in, right? So when all else fails, if we could just try and remember those things, then it's going to keep our nutrition up. And here are some resources if you want to learn a little bit more about the topics that we discussed today. You can visit these sites and you will get access to these slides because there's a couple of handouts that I want you to have access to. All right. Any questions?
Good. Can I admit something?
Lori? Yeah.
And drive here on autopilot. Had a